Wife kills husband and cooks his body after fight. Today, we dive into a shocking story from the peaceful nation of Chile. In 2014, in the small town of Molina, a fruit stand owner named Roxana Valdez Cairo had reached her breaking point after years of abuse from her partner Claudio Munoz. One terrible night changed everything. What started as a loving relationship ended in a crime that stunned the entire country. This is not just another crime story. It's a tale about love turning toxic, about desperation, and the terrible choices someone can make when pushed too far. If you want to hear more stories like this from around the world, make sure to subscribe our Reddit account and give this post an upvote. Your support helps us share these incredible real-life stories with more people. We'll take you through every detail of what happened that night, what led up to it, and what came after. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's begin this wild journey together. Trust me, you won't believe how this one ends. Remember to like and share this video. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, drop a comment below to share your thoughts as we go through this incredible tale together. In the peaceful nation of Chile, a disturbing crime shocked the entire country in early 2014, forever changing how people viewed domestic relationships. The case of Roxana Valdez Cairo, which became known as the Cucamonina incident, stands as one of the most horrifying criminal cases in recent Chilean history. On that fateful Monday morning of April 7th, 2014, news spread quickly through the small communities that a 39-year-old woman had not only killed her partner, but had done something unthinkable with his remains. The story would soon capture international attention and become a cautionary tale about the devastating effects of toxic relationships. Growing up in the Mall region of Chile during the late 1970s and early 1980s, Roxana's childhood painted a different picture from the person she would become. Born in 1975 to a middle-class family, she spent her early years in a loving household with her brother Fabiano and their parents. The community where she grew up was tight-knit, with only about 1,500 residents, all of whom knew each other well. By the time she reached her mid-30s, Roxana had experienced both the joys of motherhood with her son Juan Ignacio and the disappointment of a failed marriage, which ended in divorce when she was 36. Seeking a fresh start, Roxana relocated to the small town of Peor Esnada, situated in the Libertador Bernardo O'Higgins region's Chimbarongo commune. The town, though slightly larger than her hometown, maintained a similar rural charm with its population of roughly 1,800 people. The local economy revolved around fruit production, with about 85% of residents working in agriculture-related jobs. The annual fruit harvest brought in approximately $12 million to the local economy, making it the backbone of the community's financial stability. It was at the Don Gregorio Agricultural School where Roxana's path intersected with Claudio Andres Munoz Ramirez in 2011. Claudio, born in 1971 in Sarmiento, had been working at the school for several years before Roxana arrived. While she took on the role of night shift inspector, responsible for maintaining order among the 200 boarding students, Claudio worked as part of the cleaning staff during the same hours. Their shared night shifts meant they spent considerable time together, often being among the few staff members present during the quiet evening hours. Despite Claudio's marriage to Gisela and his role as father to 2 young daughters, he pursued Roxana with unwavering determination. Their initial attraction quickly developed into a passionate affair, with both spending increasingly more time together during and after their shifts. Within 3 months of their first meeting, Claudio made the life-altering decision to leave his family of 15 years, believing he had found his true soulmate in Roxana. The decision sent shockwaves through their small community, where such scandals rarely went unnoticed. What began as a seemingly perfect romance soon revealed a darker undertone. As their relationship progressed, Claudio's true personality emerged, showing signs of controlling behavior and violent tendencies. His outbursts weren't limited to their private life. Colleagues at the agricultural school reported witnessing at least 7 incidents where Claudio publicly berated Roxana for simple things like talking to male coworkers or not answering his calls. The breaking point at the agricultural school came unexpectedly when Claudio's aggressive behavior extended beyond his relationship with Roxana. During a particularly tense evening shift, he erupted at a group of students who had left some mess in the hallways, threatening them with physical violence. The students, many of whom came from influential families in the region, quickly reported the incident to school administrators. Within 48 hours, Claudio was terminated from his position, joining the roughly 15% of school staff who had been dismissed for misconduct over the previous decade. Rather than viewing this termination as a warning sign, Roxana saw it as an opportunity for a fresh start. She convinced Claudio that they should relocate to Molina, a bustling commune in the Mall region located about 150 miles south of Santiago de Chile. The area was famous for its thriving agriculture industry, with over 200 wine producers and countless fruit exporters operating in the region. Annual reports showed that Molina's agricultural sector generated approximately $450 million in revenue, with 60% coming from wine production and 40% from fruit exports, making it an attractive destination for entrepreneurs. In early 2012, the couple made their move to Molina, settling into a modest single-story house on the outskirts of town. Roxana had carefully planned their new beginning, investing their savings of roughly $8,000 into establishing a fruit and vegetable stand. She had done her research. Local market analysis showed that similar stands in the area earned between $2,000 and $3,000 monthly, with potential for growth during tourist season. Claudio, however, only agreed to the move after Roxana promised him complete control over their finances. The business started small but grew rapidly. Within the first month, their daily customer count increased from 20 to over 75 people. Roxana's friendly demeanor and fair prices attracted customers from all over the neighborhood. Their stand offered 15 different types of fruits and vegetables, all sourced directly from local farmers, which helped them maintain competitive prices while ensuring quality. The weekly revenue steadily climbed from $500 to over $2,000, exceeding even Roxana's optimistic projections. However, success in business didn't translate to happiness at home. Their neighbors, while impressed by the thriving stand, couldn't help but notice the disturbing patterns emerging from the couple's house. Police records from that period show they received an average of 3 domestic disturbance calls per month from concerned residents in the area. The situation reached a critical point just 3 weeks after their relocation, when a particularly violent incident prompted police intervention. Following the police visit, Roxana gathered the courage to file a domestic violence complaint. Statistics from local women's support organizations indicated that only about 30% of abuse victims in the region filed formal complaints, and of those, roughly 70% withdrew them within a week due to various pressures. Roxana became part of these statistics when she withdrew her complaint days later, convinced by Claudio's promises to change and her own hopes for their relationship's future. The cycle of abuse continued to worsen over the following months. While their fruit stand generated an average daily income of $200, Claudio would regularly disappear at night with large portions of their earnings. Local bar owners reported seeing him spend hundreds of dollars in single evenings, often boasting about his infidelities to anyone who would listen. When confronted about his behavior, Claudio would turn the accusations around, labeling Roxana as controlling and jealous. These confrontations typically started around 11 p.m. and would often continue until dawn, with neighbors reporting hearing crying and shouting through the thin walls of their house. Despite the business's success, with monthly profits reaching nearly $4,000, their personal life was crumbling under the weight of Claudio's destructive behavior and Roxana's increasing desperation. Despite the mounting problems, Roxana remained convinced that Claudio was her destined partner. Her emotional investment in the relationship ran deep. She had left her teenage son, Juan Ignacio. The path to parenthood proved challenging from the start. In August 2012, Roxana suffered her first miscarriage, an experience that affected nearly 20% of known pregnancies in Chile at the time. The loss plunged her into a deep depression, with medical records showing she experienced symptoms of anxiety and sleep disturbances for several months afterward. However, fate had different plans, and by mid-2013, Roxana discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy progressed successfully, resulting in the birth of a healthy baby girl in early winter. The new addition to their family seemed to bring temporary peace. Their arguments decreased by roughly 80%, and their fruit stand continued to prosper, generating steady monthly income of around $3,500. Feeling optimistic about their future during this period of relative calm, Roxana made a series of significant financial decisions. She sold her inherited family home for 15 million Chilean pesos, approximately $30,000 USD at the time, investing most of the money in a used delivery truck to expand their business operations. Market research suggested that mobile vendors with their own transportation could increase their profits by up to 40% by accessing multiple locations. However, concerned about the rising crime rates in rural areas, which had seen a 15% increase in robberies targeting small businesses, Roxana also purchased a registered firearm for 500,000 pesos, about $1,000 USD, completing all necessary safety training and paperwork. The peaceful period proved disappointingly brief. Within 4 months of their daughter's birth, Claudio's destructive behaviors resurfaced with increased intensity. Local bar receipts and witness accounts showed he was spending an average of 100,000 pesos, 200 USD, nightly on alcohol and entertainment. More disturbing were the reports from neighbors who frequently heard violent confrontations through the walls of their home. Police records indicate that domestic disturbance calls from their street increased by 200% during this period. Though Roxana rarely filed formal complaints, joining the 70% of domestic violence victims who remained silent out of fear or shame. Early 2014 brought another pregnancy, offering a glimmer of hope that was quickly extinguished when Roxana miscarried in March. Medical professionals at the local clinic noted that women in abusive relationships faced a 60% higher risk of pregnancy complications. The loss, combined with untreated postpartum depression from her previous pregnancy and Claudio's escalating abuse, severely impacted her mental health. Clinical assessments from this period indicated she was experiencing symptoms of major depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, with her mental health deteriorating to a point where she struggled to maintain daily functions. The situation reached a breaking point on Saturday, April 5, 2014. While searching their home, Claudio discovered Roxana's secret money stash hidden beneath their baby's crib, savings of 5 million Chilean pesos, approximately $10,000 USD, from the house sale. Security camera footage from local establishments later showed him visiting multiple bars and known drug spots throughout the night. When he returned home in the early hours of Sunday morning, heavily intoxicated, he boasted about spending every peso on drugs and alcohol. According to financial records recovered later, he had depleted their entire savings in less than 12 hours, leaving them with nothing but mounting bills and a newborn to support. The final confrontation erupted in the early hours of Sunday morning. Years of accumulated trauma, approximately 730 days of continuous abuse, flashed through Roxana's mind as Claudio taunted her about spending their savings. Police reports would later reveal that domestic violence victims typically endure an average of 35 separate incidents before taking drastic action. In that moment of intense emotion, Roxana reached for the firearm she had purchased for business protection. Located just 5 feet, the gravity of her actions didn't immediately register. When reality finally set in, Roxana's mind turned to disposal, influenced by the countless crime shows she had watched over the years. Studies showed that approximately 65% of people who commit crimes of passion attempt to hide evidence rather than immediately surrendering to authorities. Making her way to the kitchen, she selected 5 different serrated knives from their collection, choosing ones with blades ranging from 6 to 12 inches in length. Over the next several hours, in what forensic psychologists would later describe as a dissociative state, she methodically dismembered Claudio's body. Working with mechanical precision, Roxana drew upon her knowledge of butchering from years of handling meat at her fruit stand. She separated the body into 6 distinct parts, a process that took approximately 4 hours. Then, demonstrating knowledge that investigators would later find disturbing, she placed the remains in a large 50-liter cooking pot, one typically used for preparing family meals during holidays. She began the cooking process at around 8 a.m., maintaining a steady temperature of approximately 200 degrees Fahrenheit, believing this would help reduce blood traces and make disposal easier. As dawn broke over Molina, Roxana began the next phase of her plan. She waited until the remains cooled to roughly room temperature, a process that took about 2 hours. She then carefully sorted them into 3 heavy-duty garbage bags, each double-lined for security, one containing the head, another holding the legs, and a third containing the torso and arms. Using nearly 2 gallons of bleach and several boxes of industrial cleaning supplies, she spent the next 3 hours meticulously cleaning every surface in the house, paying special attention to the kitchen and bathroom areas where most of the dismemberment had taken place. Around noon, Roxana loaded the bags into her newly purchased truck and began driving toward Talca, a city approximately 15 miles from her home. Her journey, later tracked through cell phone tower data, showed she drove in an erratic pattern, covering nearly 50 miles while searching for a suitable disposal site. She explored several remote locations, including abandoned farms and secluded forest areas, but none met her criteria for a secure disposal site. Despite finding what appeared to be an ideal location, a deep ravine approximately 30 feet deep and hidden from the main road, she found herself unable to follow through with the disposal. Cell phone records show she remained at this location for approximately 45 minutes before deciding to return home. After returning to her house around 3:00 p.m., Roxana spent another hour thoroughly cleaning her vehicle, using approximately 1.5 gallons of cleaning solution and several packages of disposable wipes. In what investigators would later describe as an attempt to create an alibi, she then drove to Sarmiento, where Claudio's family resided. The drive took roughly 90 minutes, during which she rehearsed her story multiple times. Upon arriving, she played the role of a concerned partner, asking his father and two brothers if they had seen him. When they expressed confusion, she carefully planted the seed of suspicion by revealing that Claudio had stolen a significant amount of money from her, 5 million pesos to be exact. The weight of her actions finally became unbearable by early evening. Roxana drove to her father's house, where she found her brother Fabiano. After approximately 30 minutes of small talk, her composure cracked and she confessed everything. Fabiano, who had worked in legal services for over a decade, immediately recognized the severity of the situation. He explained to Roxana that voluntary surrender could significantly impact her sentencing, citing cases where similar circumstances had resulted in sentence reductions of up to 50%. According to legal statistics from the region, defendants who voluntarily surrendered received sentences averaging 40% shorter than those who were captured. This conversation, lasting approximately 2 hours, would ultimately shape Roxana's next crucial decision. On Monday, April 7th, at exactly 8:45 a.m., Roxana walked into the Molina police station, joining the small percentage, approximately 12%, of murderers who voluntarily surrendered to authorities. Her opening statement to the desk sergeant was unusual. She announced that she was there to confess to a crime that would soon dominate national headlines. The morning shift officers, accustomed to handling minor complaints and traffic violations in their small town that averaged only 3 to 4 serious crimes per month, found themselves documenting one of the most shocking confessions in Chilean criminal history. During her 3-hour initial statement, Roxana provided a detailed account of the events, speaking with a calmness that investigating officers found disturbing. She described the murder weapon as a .38 caliber revolver, the exact measurements of the knives she used, ranging from 15 to 30 centimeters, and the precise temperature she maintained while boiling the remains, approximately 95 degrees Celsius. She also detailed her 80-kilometer journey through the region with the remains, explaining how she visited 7 different potential disposal sites but couldn't follow through with her plan at any of them. Most importantly, she emphasized the years of abuse she had endured, describing 47 separate incidents of physical violence and over 200 instances of psychological abuse, culminating in the theft of her savings, approximately $10,000 USD at the time. The news of her surrender spread rapidly through Chile's media networks. By the next morning, when authorities attempted to transfer her to Molina Court at 9:30 a.m., more than 50 journalists and 15 television crews had gathered outside the police station. The media presence was unprecedented for the small town, which typically saw only 2 to 3 reporters covering local news. The crowd of journalists representing every major news outlet in Chile created such chaos that police had to establish a 20-meter security perimeter around the station entrance. The case was assigned to prosecutor Monica Barrientos, who had handled over 200 homicide cases in her 15-year career, but none quite like this. She immediately requested a comprehensive forensic examination, focusing particularly on determining the precise time of dismemberment relative to death. This detail was crucial for sentencing. Under Chilean law, post-mortem mutilation carried a significantly different penalty, 15 to 20 years, compared to pre-mortem torture, 5 years to life. The prosecutor also ordered psychological evaluations, toxicology reports, and a complete reconstruction of the 72 hours surrounding the crime. The forensic team's investigation of the crime scene yielded substantial evidence. In the kitchen, they discovered 5 serrated knives with traces of blood matching Claudio's DNA, 3 large cooking pots with organic residue, and approximately 15 liters of bleach that had been used in an attempt to clean the scene. The search of Roxana's truck revealed even more evidence: the murder weapon with 2 spent cartridges, toll receipts from 3 different highways showing her route to Talca, and microscopic blood traces in the trunk despite her thorough cleaning efforts. The evidence collection process took over 72 hours and involved a team of 12 forensic specialists. The medical examiner's detailed autopsy report, completed after 96 hours of examination, confirmed Roxana's version of events. The single bullet had entered Claudio's chest at a 45-degree angle, causing catastrophic damage to multiple organs. Specifically, the bullet had torn through the right ventricle of his heart, punctured both lungs, and damaged his stomach, resulting in death within approximately 30 seconds. Tissue analysis and decomposition patterns proved conclusively that all dismemberment occurred post-mortem, matching Roxana's confession. The medical examiner's team, led by Dr. Carlos Menendez, documented their findings in a 120-page report that included detailed photographs, tissue samples, and toxicology results showing Claudio's blood alcohol level was 0.28% at the time of death, more than 3 times the legal limit. The autopsy findings provided crucial support for Roxana's case. The toxicology report revealed Claudio's blood alcohol content was 3 times higher than the legal limit, containing 3.0 grams of alcohol per liter of blood, while the average level of intoxication is typically just 1.0 gram. Medical experts testified that this extreme level of intoxication would have significantly impaired his judgment and likely increased his aggressive tendencies. Scientific studies presented during the trial showed that individuals with blood alcohol levels above 2.5 grams were 400% more likely to engage in violent behavior. The initial court hearing on April 25, 2014, saw Roxana facing charges of parricide, which typically results in life imprisonment in Chile. However, her defense team, led by attorney Maria Carmen Vasquez, presented a compelling case for a reduced sentence. They submitted extensive documentation, including 47 witness statements from neighbors, co-workers, and family members attesting to Claudio's violent behavior. The defense also provided medical records showing Roxana had sought treatment for injuries consistent with domestic abuse on 8 separate occasions, though she had often claimed they were accidents. The defense built their strategy around multiple mitigating factors. First, they emphasized Roxana's immediate confession and full cooperation with law enforcement, which had saved the state approximately $50,000 in investigation costs. They presented evidence of the documented domestic violence report she had filed months earlier, along with photographs of injuries and testimonies from women's shelter workers who had counseled her. Hospital records showed she had visited emergency rooms 12 times in the past year alone, with injuries ranging from bruises to broken ribs. Despite the strong defense presentation, the prosecution, led by District Attorney Jorge Mendoza, pushed for a 15-year sentence. They argued that while the circumstances were tragic, the deliberate nature of the crime and the post-mortem actions warranted. The trial began on April 17, 2015, attracting unprecedented media attention. Over 75 journalists from 30 different news organizations crowded the courthouse, causing local authorities to implement special security measures. While Roxana exercised her right to remain silent, the prosecution presented 2 expert witnesses. Dr. Fernando Ruiz, the forensic pathologist, confirmed through ballistic analysis that the fatal shot was fired from approximately 2.4 meters away, entering Claudio's chest at a 42-degree angle. Dr. Ana Martinez, a forensic anthropologist, provided a detailed account of the post-mortem procedures supported by 3-dimensional reconstructions and tissue analysis that proved all dismemberment occurred after death, consistent with Roxana's confession. The prosecution's case faced significant challenges during the final phase of the trial. While the expert testimonies provided graphic details of the crime, they failed to establish any evidence of premeditation, a crucial element for securing a longer sentence. Legal experts noted that in similar cases, premeditation typically increased sentences by 40 to 60%. The prosecution maintained their request for a 15-year sentence, but court observers noted that Judge Maria Elena Rodriguez's questioning suggested she was leaning toward a more lenient verdict. Statistical analysis of similar cases in Chile showed that defendants who demonstrated remorse and cooperated fully with authorities typically received sentences 30 to 50% shorter than those who didn't. The verdict was delivered on April 30th, 2015. Roxana would serve 6 years in prison for parricide. The sentence considered multiple mitigating factors, including her immediate surrender, consistent cooperation with authorities, saving an estimated $75,000 in investigation costs, and her documented history of abuse. The decision sparked immediate controversy, with public opinion sharply divided. Social media analytics showed approximately 65% of online comments criticized the sentence as too lenient, while 35% supported it based on the circumstances of domestic abuse. The reaction from Claudio's family was particularly intense. His father, Luis Munoz, spoke to several major news outlets expressing his family's devastation at what they viewed as an extremely light sentence. In an emotional 2-hour interview with Channel 13 News, he described their expectations for either life imprisonment or, at minimum, a 15-year sentence, noting that similar cases without mitigating circumstances typically resulted in 25-year sentences. The family's pain was compounded by the condition of Claudio's remains. Forensic reports indicated the body had been separated into 17 distinct pieces, making traditional funeral arrangements impossible. Family members mounted a vigorous defense of Claudio's character. His brother presented employment records showing Claudio had maintained steady work for over 15 years, with performance reviews describing him as reliable and hardworking. Perhaps most significantly, Claudio's ex-wife Marcela came forward with a different perspective on his character. In her statement to the court, she detailed their 12-year marriage, emphasizing that throughout their relationship, which produced 2 daughters, she had never experienced any form of physical violence. She suggested that Roxana's claims of abuse might have been exaggerated, pointing to what she described as possessive and controlling behavior. The controversy intensified when, after serving 4 years of her sentence, Roxana qualified for transfer to the Semi-Open Education and Work Center in Talca. Her prison record showed exemplary behavior. She had completed 4 rehabilitation programs, earned a technical certificate in business administration, and maintained a perfect disciplinary record. The transfer allowed her to participate in the facility's maternal support program, where she could spend up to 8 hours daily with her daughter. Prison records indicated she took part in 12 different parenting workshops and received positive evaluations from social workers monitoring her progress. While this development generated some media attention, with local newspapers running several feature stories, public interest had largely waned by this point, with social media engagement dropping by approximately 85% compared to the peak of the case. In July 2018, a significant development occurred in Roxana's case when she applied for prison benefits. The process of getting these benefits is handled by prison authorities, not courts, and comes with specific requirements. Inmates must complete a certain amount of their sentence, show consistently good behavior while in prison, and finish their assigned educational programs. Roxana worked hard and successfully met all of these conditions, which started her on the path toward potential early release. The journey to secure her release involved multiple steps through different authorities. First, her case was reviewed by the prison's technical counsel, who looked at her behavior and progress. Then it moved to the Regional Justice Ministry of Mall for their assessment. Finally, the Court of Appeals in Talca examined her case. After careful consideration at each level, they decided to grant her parole, allowing her to leave prison 8 months before her 6-year sentence was supposed to end. However, this freedom came with strict rules. If she doesn't follow them exactly, she would have to go back to prison to finish her remaining time. This decision created a lot of discussion and disagreement in Chilean society. Many people had strong feelings about the case, with some believing that what Roxana did was too terrible to forgive and that she should stay in prison forever. But others stood up for her, pointing out that she had suffered through years of both physical and mental abuse from her partner before the incident happened. They felt this background was important to consider when judging her actions. There's still a lot of debate about whether letting her out early was the right choice, and only time will show how things turn out. The prison authorities continue to monitor her situation closely to make sure she follows all the rules of her release, keeping in mind both her rehabilitation and public safety. The tragic story of Roxana Valdez Cairo reminds us how domestic abuse can push someone to their breaking point. What started as a promising romance at a small agricultural school ended in a crime that shocked all of Chile. Behind the peaceful image of their thriving fruit stand lay a dark reality of control, violence, and despair. This case shows us that domestic violence can happen anywhere, even in tight-knit communities where everyone knows each other. It also reveals how victims often suffer in silence, trapped between fear and hope that things will get better. While nothing can justify Roxana's actions, her story forces us to think about the hidden struggles many people face behind closed doors. If you've been moved by this story, please show your support by liking and subscribing. Your engagement helps us share more real stories that need to be told. Let us know in the comments what you think about this case. Did the justice system make the right decision? How can communities better protect victims of domestic abuse? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to share this video if you want to find more stories like this one. Every upvote helps us reach more readers who might need to hear these important stories. Thanks for watching this video. Remember, if you or someone you know is dealing with domestic violence, you're not alone. Help is available, and it's never too early or too late to reach out. See you in the next story, where we'll explore another incredible true story from real life.